That is important for us. The welfare and well-being of my officers and men is key to me. You cannot serve this country unless you are physically and mentally fit. And police as an organization, being one of the hardest and the rigorous job anybody can do, you should expect that our men should be physically fit to be able to serve Nigeria. And from what you have seen, I leave you to attest to the fact that this is befitting enough for any organization, for any service. This is done by the police. It's not contracted out. If it is done by the police, maintained by them, definitely you'll be guaranteed that it will be maintained.
The former World Bank Vice President for Africa, Mrs. Oby Ezekwesili, has urged the presidency to hands off public procurement. The former Minister of Education also urged the government to take a firm stand on the fight against corruption. Mrs. Ezekwesili, who was one time head of the country's Budget Monitoring and Price Intelligence Unit, spoke at an interactive session on public procurement reforms at the House of Representatives. Correspondent Larry Lassisi reports.
It's rare to have the biggest room in the National Assembly filled to capacity, but this time it was. The event was an interactive session on the challenges mitigating against public procurement reforms in Nigeria. The chairman of the House Committee on Public Procurement said solutions and remedies are what is needed.
Shall we continue like this and pretend all is well? Is the situation this helpless that we cannot do something?
The first to offer insight was the former head of the country's Budget Monitoring and Price Intelligence Unit. She spoke on some issues she believes need to change.
What business does a minister or a president have sitting with a contractor and having a contract? That is not what your contemporaries do in other nations.
She also touched on the issue of corruption, a scourge she says Nigeria can tackle.
Unfortunately, from the topmost leadership of the nation to the least person in government, government has now become the grand theater of contracts. It's about contracts. When the civil servant is working late at work, it's not because they are delivering you everything. Many people are thinking that it will take some miracle for Nigeria to tackle corruption. And I say no, it wouldn't take a miracle. It just simply takes people totally committed and who are ready to own the fact that corruption is a scourge and a cancer to this nation.
She said the country must make the Treasury provide basic services for the people, tools they need to overcome poverty. The former minister has challenged the lawmakers to proactively ensure that those who flout the rules of procurement in the country are prosecuted, a power they have but appear not to be utilizing. Larry Lassisi, Channels Television News.
Well, the Minister of Finance, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, says the problem with the economy is not the current budgeting system, but the volatility in terms of the country's revenue. The Minister made the explanation at the continuation of a public hearing on the current national planning and budgetary process in the country. However, the Permanent Secretary, National Planning Commission, Mr. Ntufam Ugbo, disagreed with the minister, saying that there is a sharp disconnect between the multi-year development plans and the annual budget.
Involved in planning and budgeting were put on the hot seat on day 2 of the public hearing organized to examine the country's planning and budgeting process. In the past 2 days, financial experts have been making presentations at the hearing calling for a more coherent and inclusive national planning to drive the annual budgeting process. The Minister of Finance, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, defended why budgets should be domiciled in the Ministry of Finance. She also explained that the problem with the economy is not the budgeting process.
If you study the situation well, you will see that the volatility in terms of the country's income, which we have always illustrated, explains. It's not because budget and planning are not together. It's because the resources underpinning the implementation can fall short in 1 year simply because the oil price has fallen.
The minister also defended the envelope system.
Prior to this system, when we came in the first time, we found that the ministries, departments, and agencies did not have any ownership of the budget. To make them have ownership and to tell us what are the key projects in each sector, that the envelope system was developed. They are given the envelope and they decide which projects within their sector should get the priority, which one should not, what is more important, what is not.
But the Permanent Secretary, National Planning Commission, disagreed with the minister. He said there is a sharp disconnect between the multi-year development plans and the annual budget.
What we have observed over the years is that there has not been a strong connection between the National Implementation Plan and the budget. Because for us to be able to achieve the GDP size of $900 billion, to see that the budget and the plans are speaking to each other.
The Permanent Secretary called on the National Assembly to enact a law to ensure that ongoing projects in ministries, departments and agencies are completed before funds are appropriated for new projects. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
First Bank, truly the first.
Time to join Joker Rogers for the day's business stories.
Thank you, Sulai. Moody's Investor Service has commended plans by the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, AMCON, to retire a third of its $35 billion bonds and refinance the rest by 2014. AMCON will issue the bond in December to refinance the bank's entire exposure at an interest rate of about 6% over a 10-year period, and the central bank is expected to invest 3.6 trillion naira in the bond. Moody's says this will boost the nation's credit worthiness and eliminate the government's indirect exposure to private creditors. The Nigerian Stock Exchange has appointed Mr. Aigboje Aigi-Mokwede and Mr. Abimbola Ogunbanjo as first and second vice president to the NSE's council. The CEO of the exchange, Mr. Oscar Onyema, said, quote, "The council recognizes their sterling qualities and wealth of experience and is delighted with the appointment. We believe that they will not relent in their efforts as ambassadors to move the exchange forward." End of quote. Mr. Aigboje Aigi-Mokwede is the current Group Managing Director, CEO of Axis Bank PLC and Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Financial Markets Dealers Association, while Mr. Abimbola Ogunbanjo is the Managing Partner of Chris Ogunbanjo & Co. and a renowned economist. The Council of the Nigerian Bourse is made up of 14 members, consisting of President Aliko Dangote, the Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Oscar Onyema, and other members, including representatives of dealing member firms. In line with its vision to offer the best financial services to customers, First Bank of Nigeria PLC is carrying out an upgrade on its banking operations nationwide. To this effect, the bank says all branches will be closed but will offer skeletal services on alternative channels from 12 noon on Thursday, the 6th of June, to Friday, the 7th of June, 2013. However, all channels will be unavailable from 5 p.m. on Sunday, 9th of June, to 6 a.m. on Monday, 10th of June. The bank advises all customers to go to its website, www.firstbanknigeria.com, for full details. It's only the second day of trading in June, and the market indices at the local bursts have pushed past the 37,000 points to cross the 38,000 psychological level. Busy Coker has more of the closing figures for the day.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Markets Report. Positive bargain hunting at the Nigerian equities market pushed the key broad index up by 1.75% to cross the 38,000 psychological line. The market capitalization also closed higher at approximately 12.3 trillion naira. Multi-Tracks livestock